Welcome to the We Are VIP podcast. Each week, your host, Casey Hasten, Director of Recruiting at VIP, will bring you valuable insights from thought leaders, introduce you to incredible companies, and bring you tips for landing your dream job from our team of executive recruiters at VIP. And now, Casey Hasten.
Welcome to the We Are VIP podcast, a podcast devoted to adding value to your career or candidate search, brought to you by VIP. I'm your host, Casey Hasten. I'm an executive recruiter, director of recruiting with VIP, and your all-around hiring guru. And I am super excited today to introduce our guest, so let's get right to it. Today on the show, I'd like to welcome John Grubbs, CEO, Group Chairman of Vistage Worldwide, and founder of GCI. John is one of the world's foremost experts on generational change in the workplace. He predicts trends for talent attraction and retention to help empower employers to build better teams. Today, he joins us to share some of his insights to help employers adapt to the current candidate market. Thank you for joining us, John.
Oh, it's an honor to be here. I always get embarrassed when people read my bio.
I know, isn't it great to hear how great other people think you are?
I feel like I don't deserve that, but I had a colonoscopy earlier this year and I didn't deserve that either. So.
Poor guy. We're all getting to that age, right?
Yeah, unfortunately.
So, John, again, thank you for being here with us today. I'm super excited to have this conversation. It's been a long time coming, I think. But first of all, it's really important to me that I continue to teach our audience the importance of networking. And so I would love, if you remember, for you to share how we got connected.
Well, I think it was through LinkedIn. I think it was doing our normal work on LinkedIn. I believe that was right. Does that sound right to you?
You're really, really close. But see, one part I may not have told you is that my managing partner, Mike Haynes, is also a big fan of yours. And when we first started the podcast, he goes, "Casey, go get this guy." And so he brought you to my attention. I've read your book, or at least one of your books, and then and we have just been kind of in dialogue, and we just finally were able to make this happen. I'm so excited.
Well, I'm honored to be here. I follow you and your work, all the work that you do. It's impressive that you're much more than just a search firm.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and that's one of the things that I really love about VIP, and I appreciate you bringing that up, is that we are so much more than a search firm, and we truly value our candidates that we work with and our clients that we work with. I mean, that's the reason for this podcast. I mean, we don't make money off this. We do this so that we can give you information.
Well, to me, this is probably the most effective way for people to continue learning, to find people that you really believe in, you like their material and consume their content. I mean, if I'm in the car, I'm not listening to music most of the time. I'm listening to podcasts like this. I'm listening to books. It's just a great opportunity. I think it's a really cool space to be in.
Absolutely. And as I follow your podcast, Crazy Enough to Win, I think is what it's called. I always just do John Grubbs. Is that what it is? Crazy Enough to Win?
Crazy Enough to Win. It's for crazy people.
It is for crazy people. And let's talk about one crazy person you just had on recently, which I was like, oh my God, how did you do that? Matthew McConaughey.
Well, that's a little bit different than it sounds. Matthew McConaughey actually is a friend of a friend. You think about the 6 degrees of separation. Mm-hmm. So he's a friend of a friend of a friend. And my friend, John Newstad, was looking for someone to promote the Longview Book Club. And he has a friend that is Matthew McConaughey's friend. So we were able to bring him into my studio, and actually John Newstad did the interviewing in my studio. But of course, I got to post the video about Longview and about his roots in Longview on my podcast, on my YouTube channel as well.
That was so amazing. And it's so funny because I'd read his book, Green Lights, and it was such a great book, such a great book. If you haven't, and even don't read it, listen to it on Audible.
Yes.
You have to listen to it. So, but that's just such a huge win for you to have him on your podcast.
Well, it was. And if you read, and I agree with you, listen to the book and you'll get much more out of it. But there are some eye-rolling moments in that book. If I ever get to meet him in person and talk to him, I'm going to have to ask him about the bird and the CPR that his dad did on the bird and the size of his tower. I mean, there's some things in the book that they're hard to believe.
I know. I was sitting there listening to the book while I was getting ready one morning, and it was at that part where he builds this 13-story treehouse. And my boyfriend walks in and he's like, "What are you listening to?"
He is a mess, a true mess,
He
in
is
the
a
Texas
mess.
state of terms.
Okay, enough about all the other people, but that is such a great example of what we were just talking about networking and connections. It's all a big spider
Absolutely.
web. And so,
Yeah, I'm a firm believer that your network equals your net worth,
yes,
and we
sir.
are a product of our network.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's kind of dive into what you know. Okay.
Mm,
So,
dangerous territory.
I have been recruiting now for 8 years. This is my second career, and I can tell you firsthand that, the candidate market is constantly evolving, especially, I mean, we have seen some huge evolutions this last year with what we've been through with COVID, right? Um, so, and it can be really difficult for hiring managers to keep up with those changes and adapt to the market. So, how can employers stay ahead of that change?
Great question. Great question. In my 2011 book, Surviving the Talent Exodus, I predicted that we would see a major shift in the workplace when it came to generational change. And the short answer to your question is learn generational archetypes. Learn what's different about each generation. And when I published the book in 2011, I thought, oh man, this is a bestseller. I'm going to be on Oprah. And believe it or not, no one wanted to talk about generational change in 2011 or in 2012. It was like I was this guy running up and down the beach telling these CEOs that there's a storm coming. You got to prepare. You got to get ready. No one wanted to listen. And then in 2013, it all changed. My persistence paid off. That book kind of paved the way for me to be labeled a generational expert, which I kind of feel awkward using, but it is the book that kind of started the thinking about, okay, when the baby boomers retire, there's not going to be enough Generation Xers to fill the void. The next generation that will be significant will be the millennials. And
Mm,
it was about the transition that was coming, which happened in the 2015 to 2017 timeframe anyway. That was when the shift occurred. The dominant workforce is now the millennial workforce. And I even see that in my CEO group. I've got the CEO group that I coach. We're a really young group, 27-year-old CEO of a $4.7 million business. My median age in that group of 11 people is probably in their early 40s.
that's
Believe it or
crazy.
not, a lot of 30-something CEOs. It's crazy how young the workforce is getting.
Yeah. So the Dallas Business Journal just published their 40 under 40. Do you get that?
No, but I follow those in different cities where I work.
Yeah, it's so interesting. And I mean, those are our millennials, right?
Hmm.
And
They are the older millennials are at the 40-year-old mark.
that is crazy to me. So, and I mean, these 40 under 40s were CEOs, were CFOs. I mean, we're talking C-suite people, and it's just incredible.
Young, smart, talented, driven, but they have a different approach to work. It's so funny to interact with them. They don't define themselves by work, even though they're successful. It's not who they are, it's just what they do. And that's kind of cool.
Yeah, so what are your thoughts, given what's happened in the last year? None of us could have predicted it. What are your thoughts regarding that change? How could it have been possible for the hiring managers, because we still had companies that still had to hire during and
Yeah.
pandemic, and they're still doing that. So how could they have changed to effectively address the situation?
I think the biggest advice I would give a business owner or a hiring manager is to get rid of their ego when it comes to hiring, that it's not about them or their company.
Mm,
It's about the environment that they create that will attract and keep the best people, because the best people know they have choices.
mm-hmm.
And some leaders became arrogant, I think, thinking that people are going to stay just because they get a paycheck. And it's got to be much more than that, Casey. It's got to be much more than just the paycheck, the transaction of pay for work. There's got to be meaning. There's got to be purpose. There's got to be more to it than just the dollars that are involved.
That is so well said. I tell people all the time that once you find your passion, you never work a day in your life. And that's where I'm at, and I'm so excited. And one of the questions I was asked on another podcast is, what do you do to relax from work? And I'm like, what work? Do I work? I don't think so.
Whoever they is, They say that 10% of people get to earn a living doing something they love. That means 90% of humanity is out there earning a living or making a paycheck. And that's tragic. I'm a 10%er.
Yeah,
I can't believe I get paid to do what I do. It blows my
exactly.
mind every day.
Well, I am absolutely on a mission to remedy that number. That is my goal. That is my passion in life. So working on that. Okay, so we've heard a lot about the great resignation and labor shortages happening in certain industries. What does today's workforce want from an employer? And I think you kind of touched on that, but let's just dive a little bit deeper.
So when I help organizations put together a talent strategy, a written talent strategy, I use a quadrant that has, it's two axes. The left axis is how challenged is the person at work. And then the bottom axis is how appreciated or how important do they feel. So if you can imagine that axis and you make it into four quadrants, the upper right is highly challenged and highly appreciated or highly a feeling of importance. That's where people need to be if they're going to keep the top talent. The bottom left is the opposite, where people don't feel very challenged and they don't feel very important in the bigger scheme of things. That's the quadrant where you're going to lose people. And of course, in the other quadrants, if they feel very challenged but not very important, they burn out or they have stress. Or if they feel very appreciated or important, but they're not very challenged, they get bored. And boredom is the number one reason that I hear a lot of people are leaving. It's just not challenging. It's too easy. I don't feel like I'm improving or growing.
You know, every single candidate that I interview on behalf of my clients, I ask them the question, why are you looking to leave? And I would probably say 60 to 70% of the time, that's the answer I get. I'm not growing. I'm not challenged.
Yeah. And it's so common and it's so easy to do, keeping people out of their comfort zone, keeping people in that positive state of discomfort is something that we have to do deliberately as leaders.
Yeah, absolutely. So, all right, so we've got these employees here, and employee retention is just another difficulty that leaders are facing, right? Especially right now. I'm telling you, let me tell you what I'm seeing as a recruiter. I am seeing people take a job and 2 months later get wooed away by another company to go work for them. And then maybe 2 months later, maybe 3, get wooed by another company. These companies are shamelessly wooing these people away with more and more money. And the salaries we're seeing right now are just ridiculous. It's not, okay, don't let me go off on my tangent on that because I don't think it's sustainable. So we know that employee retention is very difficult, but how is How has retention changed over time, and what do you anticipate will happen in the future? Because there was a day when we would go work for one company.
Yeah. So if you look back historically, after World War II, when we were the only industrialized nation in the world, we had an environment where companies actually got married to their employees. They had the pension and the promise of lifetime security. And that lasted through probably the late 70s and early 80s, when we started seeing the era of layoffs, where companies started right sizing and changing their size. And if you're my age, as an older Xer, we saw our parents laid off from those so-called lifetime jobs. And consequently, the baby boomers who would stay with a company on average 20 plus years, everybody knows a boomer that's been with a company 20 plus years. Us Xers saw that and we say, well, you see what that loyalty got you? It got you laid off. So us Xers, our average tenure on the job is about 5 years. I joke with people, I say I've been working for myself almost 20 and I've been thinking about quitting too. But we're not as loyal as those boomers because we saw what happened to our parents. Well, keep going forward with that. The millennials, their average tenure on the job is somewhere between 18 and 20 months. And the pandemic has further accelerated that. We're going to be lucky to keep superstars 2 years in the future. I think with the Generation Z, the iGen, if you can keep a superstar 2 years, you're going to break the statistical curve. It's going to be better than average. So I tell companies, if you don't have a written talent strategy, if you're just relying on hopium that your best people will stay with you, then you've got a really rude awakening coming.
And you just absolutely echoed everything that I'm seeing in the industry right now, especially, like you said, it just got amplified last year. First, we saw the layoffs and the furloughs, and then we saw the mass exodus to other places. And that's what I'm telling you. I mean, I'm seeing people go for 2 and 3 months right now. And it is those entry-level roles. I'm not talking like your C-suite. So It's just baffling to me. And there was one time when I first started recruiting, I would never call you if you hadn't been at a job for more than 2 years.
Yeah.
Because you're a job hopper.
Yeah. It used to be hire slow, fire fast. That used to be the way I thought. Be careful. Go through the process. Be careful. But now people are in transition so often that if you don't act quickly, I guess as a recruiter, you probably see super talented people that people move too slow on, and they miss them. They miss the opportunity.
I just had that happen not too long ago where we had a really rock star candidate, had 3 offers, and one of the offers was from my client, and I told him every step of the way, I'm like, look, he's interviewing other places. This is where they're at. This is how quickly they're going to move. So that was like, and they had a week head start on all the other companies. And then what happened, so this a week later after he interviewed with them, they tell me he's getting an offer, I'm not getting an offer. He interviews with the company on a Wednesday. The next day they make him an offer. Next day. And he was like, and accepted. And then the next week my client calls me like, okay, we got the offer. And I'm like, he's gone. You're too late. So
it's kind of like the housing market these days, right? We got people buying houses in Texas sight unseen within an hour.
Unseen. It's crazy, and offering so much over market for it just so they can get a house. Yep. All this stuff. It's been a really wacky 18 months for sure. So if you had to pick one thing, what's one thing employees could do to increase their ability to retain that top talent?
Yeah. So, you heard the old saying of employees want to climb the ladder of success. Well, the ladder's gone. The ladder's been burnt. COVID burnt the ladder. The thing that I would advise someone who is trying to keep top talent is make sure they understand their role or the vision of the future. What is their role going to be? We have titles, and titles can be a little bit misconceiving. It's kind of like I'm a dad, I'm a husband, I'm a father, a brother. I have a lot of roles. What is my role in this business? What am I going to do to help secure the vision of this company moving forward? So don't just get preoccupied with titles. Look at roles and how their role is going to help the company achieve success. If you can get it down to that granular level, people see that they have more than just a paycheck coming. They have an opportunity coming.
I think not to, toot VIP's horn again, but I'm going to because, this is probably one of the best companies I've ever worked for. And what I love about them is that they create what I call a safe zone of communication, right? And they encourage us, if you don't like what you're doing, there's something else you want to do, come talk to us about it. If we can't help you do it here, we'll help you do it somewhere else. And so far, every time I've come to them, like with the podcast, with the coaching, with all that stuff, they'll be like, give it a shot. And I'm still here and still loving life with them.
Just do it. You think about how a firm in that sector, in that space, could say something like, why do we need a podcast? Why would we waste time on that? What value does that add? Because they don't get it. They don't see it. They don't see that this is getting VIP so much visibility, so many eyeballs, so many ears, in so many spaces, and they're recorded, so they work for you 24 hours a day.
Yep.
So it's all about the vision that the leader has.
Yeah.
And the old school thinking, well, that's just wasting time. You're going to do that on work hours versus, wow, what kind of visibility can that get for our business? I think all companies should have a presence like this. Maybe not a podcast. I believe in podcasts, but some people are very shy. But they need to have content that is working for them 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I have articles that get viewed that I've written years ago. They get viewed almost daily in some cases. Somewhere someone downloads a podcast or downloads an article, and all it's doing is getting me visibility, helping me with my network, as you mentioned earlier.
Absolutely. And it's so important that you invest in yourself daily. I was listening to a podcast. Funny. I was listening to a podcast the other day with Bob Proctor, and they asked him, and he's like one of the world's most known motivational speakers, right? And they asked him, what is one piece of advice that you received? And he said 60 years ago, because he's 86 years old now. He said 60 years ago, his mentor told him to study every single day. And he said, and that's changed his life. Yeah. So listening to podcasts and doing all that, I think falls in line with studying every single day. So, okay. So, what are some other hiring trends you see that are on the horizon?
Well, as far as trends, I think we're going to see in the future. This is my prescription, and I wrote about this in my 2015 book, Leading the Lazy, that we're going to see a trend towards people being more contract labor oriented, more
Mm.
1099 employees, where we'll see, let's say you're in the accounting space. Let's say you have a need for a high level accountant, but someone doesn't necessarily want to commit to living in Dallas for a long period of time, but they may live there for 18 months. And that somebody might come to work on a contractual basis. And I think 18 months is kind of the sweet spot. If you go longer, someone might, well, what if I don't like it there? What if I want to move back to Arizona or Florida? Uh, but 18 months is a duration that I think will be a sweet spot. They'll work on a contract basis. They'll make a lot more money, but it will not, we'll see a lot more temporary employment arrangements in the future, in my opinion.
I don't disagree at all. And other hiring trends that I'm seeing are the virtual interviews and the virtual onboarding. And that's still going on today. So, and I think it's got some good pieces and some bad pieces. And I think probably the worst piece is that you don't meet your coworkers before you start working with them, right?
Yeah.
Or your
Well,
hiring manager.
I flew to Michigan last week, and it was funny how many families were in business class, and that it's so many people that are traveling for business pre-COVID aren't traveling anymore for business. They're doing things like this. Why would I fly to Chicago to have a meeting with someone when I can just do a Zoom meeting with them?
Mm-hmm.
So I got offered this upgrade to business class pretty inexpensively. So I said, shoot, I'll take it.
Yeah.
I'll take that. So yeah, business travel will never, I think, be exactly the same. I think it will be reduced remarkably because of our ability to interact virtually. Now, there's going to still be business. I do training, I do sales training, I do leadership training. So some of that people want it face to face. They want to see me in the room. They want me to interact with people. But I am doing more virtually than I am live now. People are bringing me in from my studio to do training with their sales teams because guess what? Their sales team is dispersed all over the country. Instead of bringing everybody together,
Mm-hmm.
why not put everybody in a meeting room like this and do it virtually? And as trainers, we're learning how to get better at delivering virtual training. We're getting our wheels under us and knowing that we have to interact, we have to use our hands, we have to use
Yes.
our body language. We're getting better at it. So I think that, yeah, we're going to see some differences in how much people travel, how they work. I think you'll see more people that they can be an accountant and live in a van and travel around the country. As long as they've got good Wi-Fi, they can do the work.
How did you know that's what I wanted to do? Except for the accountant part. It is my goal to eventually be able to work from anywhere in the world, right? Because that's what I want to do, and COVID showed us we could do it.
Absolutely. That's real.
Yeah,
Even
absolutely.
from a recruiting standpoint, I'm guessing you're recruiting virtual people just like you are physical people.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I haven't met a candidate in person since the world broke. So,
It's crazy.
yeah, they won't let us yet. So they just don't, because if we've got a team of like 8 recruiters, and each of us, if we're bringing in 10 different people every week, that's a lot of risk.
Mm, yeah. And even if you think about it, you can look at the pandemic as a negative event, and it really was. So many people
Hmm.
got sick, so many people died from it, but you can also look at it as an opportunity for your business to change, to pivot. I think it's a tragedy if a business does not change as a result of what this pandemic did to the business world. I think it's a tragic, wasted opportunity.
Absolutely. And one of the things, and then I'll leave this part alone, is I just really want to encourage companies to consider that hybrid model, because I am your boots on the ground and I'm talking to these people that are looking for work. They don't want to go back in the office 100% of the time. They're okay with that hybrid, but not 100% of the time. And you're going to lose the best talent if you don't consider that model.
No more butts and seats,
No.
paying for sit put rather than output.
Yes, absolutely. So as our Gen Zs start to enter the workforce, what changes do you anticipate happening?
Yeah, Gen Z's. The biggest difference that I see with Gen Z, and they've broken the mold. So us Generation Xers, we really did our children a disservice the way we raised them. We we were so much about getting a college education. Go to
Mm-hmm.
college, go to college, go to college, go to college. We even saved money and guilted them into going to college. And you overlay that with the dual credit in high school now, where the kids that are able to take college courses in high school, they're getting to college as late term sophomores or early stage juniors, and they have to pick a major right
Right
away.
then, yes.
And so many of them are going, I said, why did you pick that major? I don't know. I had to pick something. I said, well, do you want to do it? I don't know if I want to do it or not. So they're picking majors or they're defaulting to majors just to get the paper, and they're not getting any skills. So what I'm seeing with Generation Z is a wholesale shift away from the traditional college ideology to skill-based learning. It may be
Mm-hmm.
skills that you get in a college, like an engineer or a nurse or an accountant, but they're going to shift to skills. You're going to see a lot more young people becoming electricians, plumbers, computer technology people. Those type skills are, I think this generation is saying, look, there's not many out there, and we can make 100K a year right out of college.
I agree with you 100% about that. And I think it's going to even go a step further, not just the skill sets, but it's going to be more of certifications, instead of, and like me, like my certifications are all over the place, because I can't decide even now what I want to do, but,
Yeah.
but I can do that. I can go just get that certification and feel satisfied, right? Instead of having to go back to school for 2 years or however long and get another master's or whatever. So I really agree with what you're saying, and I support it.
I do too, and I think it's going to be even more remarkable in the fact that those Generation Zers know, without a doubt, that later on, once they have a skill and they get established in the workplace, that they can actually go back to school part-time online, get a bachelor's degree. Let's say a young man or a young woman becomes a plumber and they make a ton of money. They say, well, if I'm going to move up in this organization, I need to get a business degree.
Mm-hmm.
Or they want to start their own business and they want a business degree. So they can earn their business degree from any credible university 100% online and do it part-time while they're making great money.
Yep.
I think there's a shift in the definition of educated that we're going to experience with Gen Z.
I think you are absolutely correct in that. And believe it or not, we are almost out of time.
Wow.
I know it goes so fast, doesn't it?
Wow.
So,
does.
but I do get to ask you my VIP question. So are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. So if you were chosen to be one of the first colonists on Mars, what 3 things or people would you take with you?
Mars. Got it. Person number 1, Mark Watney. You know who Mark Watney is?
Is that the guy off The Martian?
The Martian. If I'm going to Mars, I want someone that knows Mars. So I'm taking him with me.
I get him a lot, but it's usually, who was it? Matt Damon. People say Matt Damon.
Matt Damon.
Yeah.
No, I don't want Matt. He's not as smart as Mark. Mark is there. Number 2, I'm going to take Elon Musk with me.
Okay. That makes sense.
He's got the money to get me back.
But
And number 3 is Kevin Hart, because if I'm going to have the money with me, I want to have the funny with me too.
that's a great one. I love that guy. Okay.
Yeah, I'm still taller than Kevin Hart, by the way.
Are you? Well, he's not very
Yeah.
tall.
Even though I've shrunk a little bit, I'm still taller than him.
Okay, so the next question is probably, I love all our questions, but I really love this one because I love to see if I'm going to pick up new techniques and tips for starting my day. So what is one thing you do each morning to set your day up for success?
It's going to sound cliche because there's a book about it, but I make my bed every day. It's the win. I'm going to start with a win. I come home, there's a win. Even if I'm running late, I can still make the bed. And I didn't have that habit until I served in the Army. The Army gave me that habit. So, and my mom, when she was alive, made fun of me. She said, "You never made your bed growing up." I said, "I know." I said, "Some things stick." And that stuck with me from the Army, was making my bed.
That is crazy. We just had a guest that referenced that same book, and it's Colonel William something.
Yeah, it's a military guy.
It is, yeah, and he's amazing, and his speech is amazing too. So that's the second time it's come up in the VIP podcast. That means you guys got to go listen to it. Make your bed. He wrote a book. So, okay, that's a good one. I'm supposed to make my bed every day, but I don't. I know. I know. I really feel out of habit doing that.
No judgment.
Right?
Now, I will tell you this. If I'm in a hotel, I don't make the bed.
Okay, so I had a guest that said he makes the bed even in the hotel room.
Not me, not me. They have a special way to do it, and I think, that's. I think they just need to make the bed at the hotel.
Well, I'm going to tell you a secret that I've never told anybody on this podcast before. The reason I don't make my bed is because I have 2 puppies that I absolutely adore, and the little one's about 5 pounds, and she doesn't get up until noon, and she likes to be under the covers.
Oh, wow. Chihuahua?
Pomeranian Chihuahua crosses.
Okay. My brother and his wife have Chihuahuas, and they sleep under the bed covers, and we've got poodles. We have babies that don't sleep with us anymore, but we had one that we lost recently that she always slept on the cover. So I don't know if it's a Chihuahua thing or what.
Maybe it is, or maybe just a little dog thing. So, but yeah. Okay. Enough about dogs, because I could talk about them all day. All right, so my final question for you. If your life's work was being summarized in a news article, what would the headline be?
Wow, what a good question. I got it. He loved to learn. I am a lifelong learner. If it's about me, I want people to remember me as someone who loved to learn. I am more passionate about what I don't know than what I do know. And I think life is just a great opportunity for us to continually learn things and experience things. And I would say he loved to learn. Great question.
I think that's beautiful. And I think that's such a great way to embrace life. I'm right there with you. So, John, how do people find you?
Oh, that's real easy. www.johngrubbs.com. JOHNGRUBBS.com. And there's lots of free content. I give away a book. I give away a lot of free information. If someone wants to connect with me, they can connect with me through my website. It's really easy to find, johngrubbs.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being a guest today. I have thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. I know our audience will too. And I just have one more thing to say to you, John. You are a VIP.
Oh, thank you. I'm honored. I'm honored to be on this podcast. I'm honored to be on your show. Finally, we worked on this for a while, so the pleasure is all mine. Thank you.
And that's a wrap for today. Join us next week here on the We Are VIP podcast. We'd love to know how we can help you be a VIP. To find out more, log on to wearevip.com.